Hi everyone, thanks for joining Prashant Matavar. Prashant is currently heading analytics and data science product management at Equinix, which, as you know, is world's largest cloud infrastructure company. Over the last 20 years, he has played senior executive roles in driving tech vision, AI strategy, data transformation, building market-leading products. He's also an advisory board member at several startups. He does seed investments in AI, blockchain, edtech, fintech, and he regularly shares his learnings and thought leadership on productizing AI for the business outcome, which we will be talking more in detail today. Welcome, Prashant.
Hey, thanks, Mamta. Happy to be here. Hi, everyone.
So let's start with market fit and productization, because when we're thinking of something, it usually starts with market fit. So how do you identify the right market fit for an AI product? And what steps do you take to make sure that what you're creating meets the real world needs?
Thanks for this great opportunity to interact with you. And before I answer this question of market fit, let me just talk about the definition of AI for this conversation, because AI, data science, machine learning, statistics, analytics has been used so interchangeably. All I'm saying is it's a combination of different approaches, tools, again, machine learning, stats, neural networks, deep learning, everything. Let's say it's a kind of a catch-all, everything, let's call it AI, and put it in a spectrum of cost and complexity. On the right-hand side, the extreme spectrum is like a very sophisticated AI models, which might be expensive to build. And then there is a moderate and low-cost spectrum. So if you're an enterprise shop, right, or a business, typically when you do the product market fit, on the right hand side, if you're really going to go with deeper investment in AI, I would make sure that whatever the outcome you are producing, it really differentiates you as a company, as a business. It creates a competitive edge for you, and your customer understands like how it is related to them. Just a quick example: if you are an airline company and your vision is to provide the safest airline journey to the customer, and then you invest in AI to predict component failure 6 months in advance for every component and machines that are involved in the building airplane, then definitely that's an investment going to differentiate you right there. If it is a differentiator at that level, then definitely go for right-hand spectrum, and because it's a strategic investment. But a lot of use cases that we come across in enterprise space, those are between the moderate and the lower end of the spectrum. And specifically, those are related to revenue growth, revenue acceleration, top line improvement, productivity, bottom line improvements, risk avoidance in that spectrum. So in order to make sure we follow the right step, the way I look at AI is a component of the total business solution to achieve the outcome. It's not the entire thing. You're not there for the AI, but AI is for you, right? So we define that business outcome clearly, what exactly we are trying to achieve. And then what you need to do is translate that into a specific set of business problems that you need to solve. And for that, you need to do some kind of exploratory analytics to establish the baseline. Hey, what is causing this impact? If the customer delight is or customer experience improvement is the final outcome, then where I should be focusing on. And then with the data, define the current state for these problems so that you, after the investment, the before and after scenario, and then translate that problem into like whether you really need AI investment. A lot of times in that exploration, you may find there might be some leading indicators, some correlations that I can translate into simple data products that can achieve the goal. So to summarize, look at what differentiates you. And for other use cases, focus on the outcome and then focus on specific problems, establish whether you really need AI. And then if AI is needed, then also understand how that output of AI is in your business processes to achieve outcome.
Yeah, I like that framework because a lot of times AI has become such a buzzword. What you're saying is start with the outcome in mind. What is it that you're trying to achieve? What is it that you're trying to measure? And is it a differentiator? Is it a strategic investment? and have those metrics defined first, then figure out what are the use cases, and then see if you even need AI or it could be solved by something else. So let's see it is AI from this exercise that we find out. Then what are some of the key challenges that you see in, first of all, building an AI prototype and then going from an AI prototype to a commercial product?
Oh, that's a great question. And there are many challenges. Some of the bigger challenges that I feel between the lab and actual business outcome success is the lack of understanding of your personas within the customer base, even the lack of understanding of your total addressable market who are going to use it. So what happens is in a lab, typically people who are very close to the problem, they look at the AI output and there is a tendency to declare that as a victory. But the way the end user is going to consume that insight, if that is not well understood, and that's the productization mindset and productization process comes in, then the effectivity of that model reduces when you go from lab to the execution. And I can give you example. Let's say you're developing price prediction model in an enterprise space, and let's say you are a B2B business. Now, model can do a great job predicting a price for a deal. And if you tell that price to the salesperson, it may not be useful because what they are looking at is the outcome, which is I need to win the deal. And in order to win the deal, if I provide instead of a single price point, a range of the price with a confidence level and saying that I have a very high confidence at this range, moderate confidence at this range, then I'll also talk about like, hey, for this deal, my objective is a revenue or margin or retention, whatever it is. From that point of view, we should go aggressive with this deal or like stay neutral or conservative. So now I'm providing a lot of actions that can result from that prediction. And also I need to provide some explainability, right? Why AI thinks that way, and then make sure that this insight is delivered in a tangible way at the right consumption point. So if you consider that end-to-end process in mind, AI model becomes successful, but lack of understanding of that process struggles between the lab and actual outcome. And data quality is a typical problem. It will always be there in enterprise space. Just need to make sure that you differentiate between the good quality data and usable quality data, and models are built on the usable, and we need to create a framework to identify that upfront. So those are the typical barriers I see between the lab and actual adoption.
That's very good to know. I think our listeners will find that very useful. So, when we are designing AI products, right? How do we do that with scalability in mind? So, let's say now that we have a product, we productized it, but now we need to grow with the market demand. So, in normal products, it's a little bit different. But now, as you mentioned with your predictability model, how do we meet that growing market demand without compromising performance?
That's a great question. And AI performance or scalability is slightly different than typical enterprise system scalability, because enterprise system scalability is totally performance driven. And on the AI side, data plays an important role. Let's talk about scalability from the technology performance. The second is the changes in the business in the future and changes in the data profile and the changes in the user adoption. So the technology front, I won't go deep into it because a lot of these AI workloads are on cloud and every cloud vendor is capable of providing right infrastructure to scale for the data. You just need to understand your addressable market so you can project what kind of volume I'm going to deal with eventually. But the scalability problem starts when more users starts adopting the product. So typically products are built with certain set of users in mind, but data and AI insights are so fluid. Different personas come into picture in the future and they start driving different insights. So for example, the price example for sales rep and account managers, probably what I described earlier was relevant. But now, if you're a chief revenue officer, then your expectation from the same insight might be completely different. You may want to look at the price effectivity. At what price points I'm really getting the value? Or do I need to maintain all the price points? Can I simplify pricing, right? So it changes. The CFO may have a different expectation. And that happens pretty fast in AI world because hey, there is insight, looks like somebody is getting value and you need to build something. So you should be able to build those needs pretty quickly. And that you need to consider during the design. So that's the design level scalability approach. And then the third thing is very interesting. Let's say you build a model right now based on your current circumstances and all, and now your business strategy changes, or you acquire another company, or something happens. And if you don't pay attention, sometimes your current AI model becomes ineffective after 6 months. So, scalability during the design time, you can think of certain scenarios which are a little bit out of the bounds, but still practical, and make sure that you have built enough flexibility and observability in the model so that you can quickly catch those signals and then act on it. So those are the aspects of scalability.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Then does this mean that if persona is changing and then depending on the questions that the person is asking, that your model may start hallucinating more and more?
That's possible. That's a great question. And hallucination typically is correlated with LLMs these days. But even for traditional AI models, you can have a biases. And based on how the data is structured, the input data is structured, basically you can get into that hallucination problem. Again, going back to data quality, that's also a certain important aspect for scalability, that upfront you are making sure that your data is complete, which is fitting to the model. And in enterprise space, you cannot guarantee it, because of variety prison, but then you should have a better way to catch those scenarios upfront. And also in the explainability part, basically you should be able to tell like, hey, how confident you are based on the input that you are getting.
Okay, makes sense. My next question is, what are some of the best practices that our listeners can also think about and implement for integrating AI solutions into their existing business systems and workflows?
Yeah, that's a great question. So that also leads to business instrumentation and adoption with a product mindset. So look at AI output as some kind of a insight which can be API enabled. So every insight has a API, and that way you can productize better and integrate with your business processes. So a lot of insights, you don't need a traditional dashboards. So if you have API enabled, then you can call those APIs from your traditional app, which are your touch points. So example is, let's say you can predict if I can promise certain order on a certain date, right? If it is a API enable, you can call that available to promise API from your supply chain systems. You can call it from your coding systems, and AI can give you result right there. Or think of like embedding those AI at a decision making touch points. So for example, some big purchase order comes to you for approval, and you really don't have much time to scan through. But if there's a AI input to it, you're not going to any dashboard. In that approval window, you're seeing like, hey, AI thinks there is slight risk in approving this because any reasons, right? The price is odd, or a supplier's background check looks a little bit fishy, anything, then you know what's the right action. So that's how you can think of integrating AI inputs into your business orchestration.
Yeah, that's very good point. So instead of having like another dashboard to go to where you have to now go and tally things, build it to the workflows you already have so that you can see it in time and also be proactive about it. And in some cases, actually take the action itself, as you mentioned, if it is API enabled. Now, this would take a lot of effort, Prashant. It's easier said than done. So, do you have any tips or any guidelines on how to go about that?
No, that is right. So that all leads into your data strategy. So it's coming from strategic point of view. if you have a established data strategy in the organization, that leads into right level of investment in the data platforms, where AI models can be deployed with scalability and enable APIs. So you need a robust platform, you need a right skills in the organization, and you need a people with a product mindset so that they can connect the dots between the actual business problem and the insight. So productization mindset is essential, but investment point of view, definitely you need to invest into some kind of a data platform, and every platform enables APIs. It's a commodity these days. It's just like you need to look at what right tools, right set of tools we can leverage to achieve the business value.
So now switching back to, we talked about what is the use case you're trying to solve and what are you trying to achieve as your outcome. Then you can calculate how much investment you want to do in it. AI is not cheap, especially if you're going to be training your own models. There's GPU cost and other things involved. So, how do you balance the high initial cost of AI development with the long term financial benefits to ensure that we get a positive ROI?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I think every data leader has this dilemma where to invest and how to maximize the potential of AI. And it is expensive, it requires a cost. So, a couple of things in order to optimize the cost is basically very laser focused process where you are really investing time to establish the baseline so that you can explain before and after easily. So picking the right use case, and I also talked about the business differentiator use case where the investment equation is slightly different there because it is a more of an innovation and you're probably taking risk in that investment, but bulk of rest of the AI investments are definitely laser focused on picking up the use case. Second thing is do a lot of exploratory analytics upfront to see, do I really need a sophisticated AI model, prediction AI model, or I can do something lightweight, light ML. So that process also helps you to optimize the cost. And then the third thing, in enterprise space, typically you don't need 1,000 AI precision. What you're looking for is some outcome where I can supply it to human in certain consumable way so that they can achieve their goals. So calibrate properly how much accuracy I need it really, and based on that, optimize the AI models. And other thing is you really need a platform to scale and you need to invest in some of the basic things like data quality, data catalogs, lineage, so that data scientists don't spend a lot of time finding data in ML ops. You need not invent everything from scratch. So those are other areas where you can focus and get the cost optimization.
Very well said. So, you mentioned about some of the things that, for example, making the mistake of saying that we need 100% accuracy and having a baseline and having a good enough percentage where you're okay with the results and then you can iterate on it. Any other common pitfalls that you see that people are making and how can those be avoided?
Yeah, so there are a few more I can add. Lack of understanding of that persona. So probably I'm reiterating that. So coming from external out point of view, like hey, how this is getting consumed. And the pitfall is not thinking about the adoption and the business process instrumentation. Think about this as a product which has a market, which has a user base, and you're solving for their personas. The other pitfall I can think of is thinking like, hey, I need each and everything in terms of data. More data has a more cost, but you can little bit be surgical in that area. Like, hey, how much data I need to use for certain decision making? Identify the top tier of data sets that you really require instead of like, hey, I want to train with everything available. That's also not very efficient. And then in the AI model building, it's a journey and we learn a lot in that process. So what I see is basically if you keep eye on all the learnings, there are a lot of byproducts that you can maximize the value with. So for example, you learn about a lot of process nuances during this journey. You learn about your data that can translate into some kind of specific actions, or you learn about leading indicators that doesn't need AI. So keeping eye on that and leveraging them towards the outcome helps with the cost optimization as well as acceleration to the business value.
Yes, those are very, very important points so that we can have a positive ROI instead of a negative ROI. And also, what are some of the costs, like operational costs, that people should be keeping in mind? Because there is some initial cost, but then there's also ongoing and operational costs that comes with these AI projects.
So as I said, any AI model requires some level of value observability so that you always make sure that the model is getting the quality data, the quality grade is not going down. Then also the data profiles are not drastically changing and the model is still effective. So the investment there is observability, not the technology term, but from the value term, always making sure that who is using it, what value they are getting, and then can you still correlate before and after picture. Or certain times what happens is, let's say there is a group of users who have not adopted the model. There are a group of users who have adopted. You can do A/B test and see how it is changing that group's life who is using AI. So those are the constant operational investment.
So, one of the themes that I'm hearing is to make sure that the foundation is set up correctly. And it all starts with data. And we have seen that there are certain biases, there are considerations, like ethical considerations we all should be doing. Can you shed some light on that and your viewpoint on how do we balance the need for innovation with ethical considerations when we are prioritizing AI?
No, that's a great question. And especially with the LLM and hallucination, possibility of misled action, that has been talked about heavily. But within the pure play AI and data, the data protection, the PII, all the regulations, compliance is extremely important. And what I feel is this is all non-negotiable, and we should not look at the data protection, security, and misuse of data or data breach as a barrier for innovation. So for LLMs to make sure that the prompts are not risky prompts, or once the output is built, making sure that there is a sanity check so that you are not disclosing any sensitive data, you are not violating any policy. So to summarize, my thinking is slightly different. It is a feature. Data protection is, or non-hallucination, protecting your own asset is a feature of any data and AI product. So it should go like in a cohesive way.
I really like that statement that it should be a non-negotiable and it is a feature. You need to think about data security, data privacy, just when you're thinking about your outcome. It is as important. One question I like to ask everyone is about the future of work. First of all, do you see AI product managers coming in any near-time future and replacing you?
I would answer this in a two parts. One is I just want to give you a little bit the data landscape today, and then in the future, how that landscape improves and how AI improves, and then what roles become very relevant, right? So today, if you look at the data landscape, a lot of innovation happened on the structured data. And again, I'm talking from the enterprise business context. LLMs is still in the initial phase, but the structured data problem is that sits in your ERP systems, supply chain management, CRM systems. And if you look at all the actionable data possible in the enterprise, it's hardly 30% of the data, 30 or max 40. And then all of that is not very effective. So only 10% of the data is effective for decision making. So we focused on the 10%, and now we started exploring LLMs, which is like unstructured data that sits in the organization, that enterprise content, the contracts, the wikis, the blogs, or design and all. But also there's a lot of data in like social media. There's a lot of data in even your internal videos. And then there's a lot of data that machines produce, right? Or if you are producing physical assets, like if with IoTs and all, every physical asset, every item will start producing some kind of a useful data. Now, all that data is untapped. So basically for data leaders, if they are not ready with even 10% data today, in the next few years, those companies may get wiped out if they are not focused on rest like 90% data that is evolving right now. So my prediction is in the future, all the technology behind the scene can get consolidated, can become robust, because today, like IoT data is very noisy. Unless you have a lot of investment, it doesn't become useful. But with the convergence of technologies and the cost equation coming down, in couple of years that data is easily accessible to you in enterprise. So now coming back to your question, how enterprises will approach, what I envision is any enterprise or business will be a technology platform which orchestrates all the process in that business, right from launching a new product to retiring a product, hiring employee, collecting money, reporting revenue, everything that platform does. Now AI comes into picture as a AI co-pilots, which will grow the business around it. So I envision like finance bot doing all your finance operations using AI, and then your HR bot will doing HR operations, revenue operations, or customer acquisition, CRM, whatever, right? Sales, marketing. But the point is the human has a role to make sure that these bots get right level of nutrition, right level of data and input, so that your bots are better than your competitor's bot, basically. So there is a role for human to build that first orchestration platform and then manage the bots so that they do ethical work and they do right work and they really differentiates you. So that's how I look at enterprise level.
So let's say 10 years from today, you wake up. What do you think the world looks like?
Yeah. So I'm not a fortune teller, but what I feel is today's AI based products and automation, they still solve one specific problem, and they solve a lot of those problems much better than what human could do. They can do it much faster. What I feel is with all this data available for decision making and converging, AI will start helping you to solve the life goals. Example, let's say you're a small kid and you want to become a golf pro in like 10-20 years. Now AI can tell you like, hey, is your DNA, body structure, how it correlates with a successful golf player, and maybe there is a potential. And then every decision the AI is going to guide you, like school selection or home selection. It's gonna say like, hey, probably this neighborhood is much better for you. So this is just example, but there's a power because your health data, your day-to-day activity data, right? And then all your demographic data, everything can help you to shape into certain habits, atomic habits, certain behaviors that can help you for lifelong goals.
Yeah, it already feels like we're living in a sci-fi movie. And this seems even more so. What scares me though is whenever we have some new technology, it could also be exploited.
Yeah.
Now, if AI has so much of your data, it knows about your every minute and it knows all of the private information, it needs to be protected. I think there needs to be some compliance and some regulations from government.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Anything else you want to share with our listeners, Prashant?
Yeah, this was a great session. I just want to highlight a couple of things for data leaders, emerging data leaders. Having talked to at least 150 data leaders across the globe in last couple of years, a couple of things to watch for. One is to make sure that you have a very strong data strategy, a robust data strategy at enterprise level, which is very well aligned with your business strategy. So it's definitely, how you're leveraging this data to achieve successful business outcomes. And the second part, which is not commonly seen, is how that data strategy translates into obligation for everyone in the company. So it should not be on just paper, but if I'm like enterprise architect, I know because of data strategy, I need to prioritize certain things. If I'm like a finance planner, I know my obligation towards data strategy. So you need to build that culture. Definitely, you need to be liaison with all the business functions, build that relationship, and then drive the data strategy. Because once you have that, then a lot of decision makings is investments become easier. So I would definitely advise data leaders to think strongly about a data strategy and executing it.
Very good advice. Thank you so much, Prashant. I learned a lot from this conversation, and I'm sure our listeners will be able to pick up new tips and guidelines as well. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Likewise, thank you so much.